Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special episode where we are going to be talking about the nominees for this year's Game Awards. I personally am a little bit late on this video. I wanted to release this video a couple weeks back as soon as the Game Awards announced these nominees, but life has just been so incredibly busy for me that I have just not had the time to really just be able to do all of this. So today, we're going to go through most of the categories, particularly the categories that have the games that I have played personally, share my thoughts about them being nominated for the categories that they have been, and I just want to just expand upon everything and go from there. So if you're ready, we're going to get right into it and start with our very first category. Obviously, everybody wants to talk about Game of the Year. If you want to see my thoughts about Game of the Year, go towards the end of this video. That will be the last thing that I talk about. I am going to start with Best Game Direction. Best Game Direction, Astrobot, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and then Metaphor ReFantazio. These are the nominees. Now, obviously, I've not played Astrobot. Astrobot's more like E for everyone. It's like it's a game for everyone. It's not really a typical game that I would see myself playing, but seeing how well that game has done, this makes sense. This just makes sense. Sony's coming in, creating a game where you can explore worlds, you can go do the things that you can do in this game. This is just a no-brainer. Balatro, it kind of seems like that this is like a spin-off from what I've heard of Magic the Gathering. So, and that's a pretty popular card game that is out there right now. So obviously I know of Magic the Gathering. I've not personally played Magic the Gathering, so do not at me in the comments. Do not. But seeing that this is there, and this is an independent game. This is an independent game. This is also nominated for Best Indie Game for the year. So that just makes sense. That just absolutely makes sense. And of course, Metaphor ReFantazio, that type of gameplay, that type of style, it's just not my thing. It's just not my thing. But seeing how well that this is done, sure, I guess this makes sense. We'll just go with that for now. But I am going to talk about 3 of these games because I have touched on them. That was weird to phrase. Let me re-say that. I have played each of these games, and I just want to start with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth because this game truly, obviously we know that Final Fantasy VII Remake is being done, and this is a 3-part staged remake. We started with part 1 for the Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, and then Final Fantasy VII Rebirth being part 2 of the remake. We know part 3 is going to come. We don't know when specifically, but if I had to take a big guess, my guess is Square Enix is going to release this game somewhere around maybe 2027, 2028, maybe a little bit later. Give us like that big finale for Final Fantasy VII Remake that they are currently putting together. And this game did significantly better, in my opinion, in the combat, the graphics, everything, than the first game. So seeing that in this category, it makes a bunch of sense. Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree. Now I gotta be real here, friends. I gotta be real here. I'm just gonna say this on the basis of this game because I love this game. Elden Ring is amazing. But here's the sitch. Shadow of the Erdtree was a DLC. A DLC. It's a DLC, honey. It's not a full game. It's additional content that's added to the main base of the game. Right? For a category like this, sure, throw it on in there, but there are other categories, honey. DLC, it don't work. So, however, in terms of what they added into Elden Ring with the DLC, the abilities, the combat, the weapons, everything, yeah, this makes sense. From Software can sometimes go crazy with adding things to make things even more challenging. Let's be real here. From Software, they will do anything to make us crap our pants. Let's just say that. So, this does not surprise me. Black Myth Wukong. Oh my gosh. This game... This game is phenomenal. This game, I think... This is my personal favorite of... that I have played this year. This has just been like a phenomenal experience. The combat, the story arc, just like everything about the game is so well done. So incredibly well done. And I personally think that Game Science, the developers behind this game, is going to do a lot, with this to make this, just something phenomenal in the future, and then just go from there. So, these games did really well. They all did really well, and we're going to go from there. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next category that I'm going to talk about, and that is Best Narrative. So the nominees for this category are Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Metaphor v Fantasio, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, and then Silent Hill 2. So, these are the nominees. Obviously, 3 of these games I have not played. I wanted to play Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 because that looked amazing. However, Mama doesn't own an Xbox, so I'm a little bit sad about that. I don't own an Xbox, so I can't play that. However, I can talk about other games like Silent Hill 2. I want to start with Silent Hill 2 because obviously, as I stated previously, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the story is phenomenal. Again, it's remaking everything for Final Fantasy VII as a whole, 3 parts of the remake, and it's adding things onto the story that is different from the main game, so it is phenomenal. It's a really good narrative, and all that good jazz. But I want to talk about Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill 2's narrative, it's very interesting because, again, as I talked about this in my final episode for Silent Hill 2, which I just released, by the way, so you should check that out. See me finish the game. I just finished it. You should check it out. But as I've talked about in this game, pretty much, like, you go through this whole journey in Silent Hill 2, and I feel like the interactions of James with all of these different characters, Eddie, Angela, like all these different characters that James encounters, they're bits and pieces of different like emotions, different feelings of himself from what has happened, definitely the horror experience that makes you cry a lot more than Resident Evil. So just put that out there. I think Jacksepticeye says that best. Like, the atmosphere that you were in Silent Hill 2 compared to Resident Evil. Like, Resident Evil's good. It got good atmosphere, but Silent Hill 2 is the atmosphere that makes you want to cry to your mama. And that. So moving on, I would like to go ahead and move on to the next category, and that is art direction. Art direction is where we talk about, graphics. This is highly heavy on graphics. And again, Astrobot is a nominee for this category. Makes sense. Black Myth Wukong. Oh, phenomenal. Amazing. Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree. Metaphor v Fantasio. And then Neva. And I believe Neva is an indie game. I think Neva's an indie game. Yeah, I think so. So, these games are great. Honestly, this category, I'm not going to spend much time about it, but I would love for it to be Black Myth Wukong. I think Neva could win it. I honestly think Neva could win it from what I have seen. But if we're going to be real here and we're going to be honest, everyone's going to cream their pants and want to go for Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erd Tree. Best score and best music. This is one of my favorite categories because I'm a music person myself, for the music that you listen to. So, of course, there's Astrobot. There's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Metaphor v Fantasio, Silent Hill 2, And then Stellar Blade. This is the first category we can see Stellar Blade on. Girl, I want to talk real quick about Stellar Blade because, you know, again, it makes sense that it's not for Game of the Year. It makes sense. You know, there were definitely some flaws with Stellar Blade. There were some good moments. There were some good moments with Stellar Blade. I mean, like, again, like, as I said in my video for Stellar Blade, I'm not crazy about the whole, like, oh, we gotta make the character look so pretty. We gotta gigantify whatever is there. And then, like, you know, no, I'm not really into all of that. More for me, I'm a person who really likes story arcs. I'm a person who likes, you know, listening and being captured in with the music to help tell the story. Because if the music is doo-doo, then the game's not gonna do so high, right? Because you need music to be able to showcase and tell the story to enhance the experience that somebody's gonna be playing, right? And, you know, for as, like, minuscule as the story was for Stellar Blade, because it went up and down. The story went up and down. It was just like, ugh, girl. Okay. Alright, we're gonna move on to the next category, and the next category is for Best Performance. Now, this is the category for the people who are the voices of these characters. Starting with Brianna White for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's Aerith. I think that's the person that plays Aerith. Yes, she's Aerith. Alright, I called it. And honestly, like, that was such a phenomenal performance. Especially, spoilers, if you don't want to hear this part, especially the part when Aerith dies at the end of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, like, especially the moment that happens, like, the performance that gives, oh my gosh, very nicely done. You have Hannah Tell from Life is Strange, Double Exposure. I can't say anything about Life is Strange because I have not played those games. However, that is a game series that I am personally thinking about starting very soon. If you would like to see me play Life is Strange, please let me know. I'm sure Hannah Tell did an amazing job in Double Exposure, but I've not played these games, and I want to maybe possibly start playing these games. So please let me know if you would like to see me play Life is Strange. Humberly Gonzalez for Star Wars Outlaws. Obviously, this is the person who voiced Kay Vess in Star Wars Outlaws, and we'll talk about that in just a second. You've got Luke Roberts for Silent Hill 2, and I believe he is the voice of James in this game. And then you have Melina Jurgens, which, I'm sorry for the mispronunciation, but she was the main protagonist in Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Again, I don't own an Xbox. Sad. I'm sure it was a phenomenal game, and I'm sure that it was a phenomenal experience, but I am going to talk about the ones that I know most of. And go from there. Let's move on to our next category with that in mind. I'm going to skip around just a little bit, and we're going to go to, I think I want to go to this. Yes, this is the one I want to talk about. Best Action Game. These are the nominees for Best Action Game. Black Myth Wukong, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Helldivers 2, Stellar Blade, Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. So this is for Best Action. So this is the category that you want to get the best combat experience. This is the one that you want. And if I'm going to be completely honest, for me, I mean, I'm sure everyone's going to go gaga and cream their pants for Black Ops 6. Let's be real here. Everybody who is everybody loves Call of Duty. Like, let's be real here. Everyone's going to want that to win. But if I'm going to give you my honest opinion, my good old humble honest opinion, I think it's going to be torn between either Black Myth Wukong or Stellar Blade. Honestly, Stellar Blade might take the victory on this one. And here's why. One of the main praises that I gave Stellar Blade was the combat itself. this was one of the main praises for this game, was how smooth the combat felt. Being able to fight the enemies and the parrying system, like, it is just remarkably smooth and well done, because then it just makes fighting the enemies so much more interesting, and it just makes it more enjoyable to do too, especially when you have to do all this parrying and all that stuff too. Black Myth Wukong has a great combat system, don't get me wrong. I'm not taking it out of the question. It's a great combat system because you have to layer so many different things to add into the combat. There's so much to do, but if I'm going to be strictly clear, it's going to be neck to neck against these two, and I think Stellar Blade might take this just over the edge, just a little bit. But again, everybody could be creaming their pants and they could say, well, Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is the best action game I've ever played in my entire life, especially this year. I don't care about Black Ops 6. Personally, shooting games are just not my style, not my thing, especially games like that. It was for me back in the day, but you know, I'm a gentle soul who likes to play story-driven games, and that's just not my tea, sis. Sorry. I do want to talk about Best Action Adventure Game. You know, so, you know, you've got puzzles, you've got all that stuff, you got the combat, of course, and, you know, the adventures of it all. Right? So there's Astrobot, there's Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown. This is the first one that I've talked about with this game in the category. Silent Hill 2, Star Wars Outlaws, and then The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. These are the nominees for this category. And I will say, based on these 5 games that are in this category, I honestly think Star Wars Outlaws could possibly take this category for the win. Let me explain why. Because, you know, this game brings like a bunch of different elements. So you've got shooting the enemies, you've got ways to lure enemies, like it feels like you're in an Uncharted experience, like a little bit. That's what this game kind of reminds me of. And just being able to go and like do everything. I have been recently playing this game on my own, just goofing around, doing what I want to do, and just making myself a big old mess. Let's be real here. I've been making a mess of myself. The Hutts hate me right now. They really hate me. I'm at the lowest status that you can go with the Hutts, that every corner I turn, there's always a gang of them trying to look for me, and then they find me, and then they want to shoot me down. And then I'm like, well, I'm going to shoot at you back, sir, and go from there. It's just your classic action-adventure, definitely worth the grab. I mean, Silent Hill 2 is pretty good too, but I honestly think there's more of the action than there is the adventure in Silent Hill 2. Because I feel like in Silent Hill 2, you're kind of led to where you have to go. Star Wars Outlaws, yes, you are also kind of led to where you need to go, but it is open world. You can decide, you know what, I don't want to do the main quest, I want to go and do this over here. I want to do that over there. I want to go over to you. I want to make a deal to you to the Empire. I'm going to sail your ass, and you're going to go over there, and then I'm going to probably scold you from the Hutts so that the Hutts can hate me even more. Alright, I am going to move on to the last 2 categories. There are other categories in this award ceremony, but again, I'm only going to be focusing on the ones that impact, you know, like what I've experienced, my personal interests for these games awards, and for the ones that have the games that I have played this year for this channel, for this content, for like personal interests and all that stuff. We're going to start with most anticipated before we get to Game of the Year, because I know you all, there is so many games coming out next year. It is going to be absolutely bananas. I cannot wait to see what next year is going to hold in store, because so many good games are going to be coming out next year. But these are the 5 games that are coming out next year that are nominated for this category, and they are Death Stranding 2 On the Beach, Ghost of Yotai, Grand Theft Auto 6, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and finally Monster Hunter Wilds. It will not surprise me, as much as I would love for it to be Ghost of Yotai, it's going to be Grand Theft Auto 6. It's going to be the winner. Alright, now it is time to talk about Game of the Year. This encompasses everything. So all the categories that we've talked about for the Game Awards is basically like individualistic points of view. Game of the Year, if you win Game of the Year, you basically encompass everything. You have great story, you have great combat, you have like just everything. Mwah. It's just well done. And here are the nominees. We have Astrobot, Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Metaphor ReFantazio. These are the nominees for Game of the Year. I'm going to just be clear right off the bat. If I'm going to be honest, seeing that these games all have done phenomenally well, Metaphor ReFantazio I don't think is going to win. Balatro, I personally, as well done as that independent game has been doing, I personally don't think it's going to win Game of the Year. I personally don't think it's going to win. It just doesn't have enough cred to win it. Although getting the nomination is still a huge achievement. So congrats to everybody from the local Thunk and PlayStack studios. You've done a phenomenal job with this game. So you should be proud about that. Astrobot, as much as I would love to see, like a cute little itsy bitsy like game like this, to win the nomination, win the award, I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to be torn between, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. These are going to be the games that are going to be the top 3 for this category, if I'm going to be extremely honest with you. I think these are going to be your top 3 contenders right here. And again, as I said at the beginning of this video, Elden Ring. Everybody loves Elden Ring. Elden Ring is one of the best, and I think the best, Souls game created by From Software. Hands down. Hands down. Everybody loves this game. However, Shadow of the Erdtree, it's a DLC, honey. It's a DLC. You're telling me that an entirety of the DLC is worthy enough to be in a category for full standing games for Game of the Year? You're telling me the DLC alone, not the base game, because the base game won Game of the Year back in 2022, honey. The game won Game of the Year already. So it doesn't need it again. It doesn't need it again. The game is phenomenal. We already know this because it won in 2022. But the fact that they have a DLC in Game of the Year, honestly, it kind of makes me upset a little bit, because it's just you should honestly create a category that is solely for best DLC slash expansion for a standalone title, right? If you had a category for DLC, girl, then you'll start talking, and then we can be like, okay, now this is definitely and clearly the winner right here, because then that would actually be worthy of that category, and that be a standalone for that category as well. It just kind of makes me upset, because it takes away all of the hard work that these other games have done, these standalone games, and then have it be ruined by a DLC. That's all I have to say. It's because it's a DLC, honey. It's a DLC. It's not a standalone game. It's a DLC that you need to buy to add on to Elden Ring itself. It's a DLC. It's a DLC. So, as much, because I think people are going to vote for Shadow of the Erdtree because it creams their pants. It makes them feel so good about themselves that they want to do that. However, I honestly think Game of the Year, because it's very close between Final Fantasy and Black Myth Wukong, but I think Black Myth Wukong deserves Game of the Year, and here is why. This game has been in development since 2019. 2019. This game has been in development for five years. Let me do the math in my head correctly. This game has been in development for 5 years, and nobody expected the game to be as flawless as this was. And it made it phenomenally awesome. Because I'm going to be real clear here. I had no intentions of playing Black Myth Wukong because I was like, okay, it's another Souls-like. I just played a Souls-like. Do I really want to do this? Right? Like, and I just finished playing Shadow of the Erdtree. Do I want to play Black Myth Wukong at this point in time? And then I did a poll about it, and everybody was like, yes, RaisinBran, you need to do this. So I played it, and then it just changed my whole perspective about the whole game. It's so phenomenal. It's so well done. It's like the combat, the story, the art, the graphics, the music, everything. It's so well done. But then again, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it did phenomenally well. This game won also most anticipated for this year at last year's Game Awards. So that's also something to consider as well. So that is why I am just hoping it's either Black Myth Wukong or Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I would prefer Black Myth Wukong over Final Fantasy. That's just my take. But I'm really hoping that it's not Shadow of the Erdtree. I'm just really hoping that that's the case. And that's all I have to say about this year's nominees. Now, you can go in before Thursday, December 12th. You can go in and you can start voting for these games, and you can cast your vote at thegameawards.com/nominees. You can go in, you can vote on the website, and you can tell the world what your personal thoughts are and who should win these awards. Now, again, I'm not sponsored in any means necessary to talk about the Game Awards. This is just my personal thoughts about what's been nominated and what we're going to see at this year's Game Awards. As you know, the Game Awards is also well known for all of the debuts of new games and trailers. Like, it's going to be an event that you don't want to miss. So make sure that you tune in on Thursday, December 12th. And I believe it starts at either 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time, somewhere around there, I think. Thank you so much for watching this video, sharing my thoughts about it. Hopefully, you and I have some similar thoughts about everything that you see here. If you have different opinions about the things that I have said, or if you have input from other games that I did not personally talk about, please feel free to talk about it in the comment section below, because I would love to hear what everybody has to say about this year's nominees. It's going to be really exciting. I'm hoping that a DLC does not win Game of the Year. I'm just really hoping that that's the case. However, we don't know what's going to happen. So, with that being said, as for now, this has been RaisinBran, and I will see you in the next video.